Welcome to Jurisedge Academy's YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to discuss some easy and important areas that you have to focus on for cracking CLAT PG in 3 months. So let's start this video and discuss what are the things that you should be focusing on and how to smartly prepare for this very important examination. So first and foremost, you have to identify the areas that you have to focus on. So I'm assuming that you have already taken a look at the syllabus and the pattern for the CLAT PG 2022 examination. So it's very important to identify some main areas that one should focus upon. So firstly, you have to understand the difference of approach that is required for major versus minor subjects. So major subjects like Constitution of India, Indian Penal Code, Public International Law, Jurisprudence, Family Law, these have to be tackled in a different manner as opposed to minor subjects like environmental law or taxation law or labor law for the purposes of CLAT. Second thing that you have to understand is that it is not required to read lengthy commentaries to have an understanding or grasp of a subject. For a competitive exam like CLAT, what is most important in CLAT PG is focusing on the concepts, particularly the BEAR Act and the important amendments and the landmark cases that have happened in that particular field. So the focus should primarily be on crisp material that is actually helpful for the exam. So one should always focus on the BEAR Act, and in addition to that, brief concepts to help you navigate through the entire concept conveniently. The third thing that you have to focus particularly for CLAT PG is recent case laws. So because CLAT has changed the pattern and they would be testing you from giving comprehension passages from important recent case laws, it is very important to get habituated to reading lengthy judgments, important judgments, to identify what areas are important in these judgments and what areas you can skip. So knowing how to read recent case laws and doing that efficiently while focusing on the quality of cases and not necessarily the quantity of cases for CLAT PG. Lastly, the most important thing that is there in any competitive examination is practicing mock tests. So I think these are some of the areas that you should be primarily focusing upon in the last 3 months of your preparation. If you haven't started yet, it is still a good time to start preparing for this exam because it is something which you can crack very well in 3 months itself. Now we're going to talk about what subjects require special focus. So these are some of the subjects that have to be covered in detail by anybody who is appearing for this exam, because these are the areas which have consistently been tested and are also very important conceptually, not just for CLAT PG but for any other LLM entrance exam also. So if you take a look at the kind of questions that have come in the last 2 years, they have primarily focused consistently on these subjects. Of them, most important would be constitutional law and administrative law. Next up is jurisprudence. Jurisprudence, not just the understanding of how or what did a particular jurist say, but also how to apply that in a hypothetical situation. And then you have public international law, which has also been very consistently asked. Next, you have criminal law. Criminal law would include the basics of the Indian Penal Code, whereas it will also include the CRPC and the Evidence Act. Now, one should focus on CRPC and Evidence Act in a manner which helps them understand the important areas in it without necessarily getting into too many details of the procedural aspects. Lastly, there's family law, which has again been tested consistently in the last 2 years, depending on which judgment has recently become more important, and also they have tested on general concepts of marriage, divorce, maintenance, guardianship, etc. from family law. Next is smart focus on some other subjects. So the previous slide discussed how you have to focus on some subjects in very detail. Now we're going to cover the second set of subjects, that is the subjects which have to be covered strategically. For example, contract law, company law, law of torts, environmental law. These are the areas which are also tested occasionally. For example, in environmental law, having an understanding of 2 important international instruments, knowing about the landmark case laws would be sufficient. In law of torts, again, understanding the basics of all torts and knowing probably like 2-3 landmark cases in all of them would again suffice. Same applies for contract law and company law. The preparation has to be strategic. For contract law and company law, focus should be on the bare act coupled with important case laws or any important amendments that might be happening. The last set of subjects is those wherein you have to focus on them in a summary manner, which means that you don't have to go through the entirety of them, because the subjects that are mentioned here are quite bulky and it is not possible to actually cover them in great detail for a competitive exam like CLAT. So it's very important that you focus your discussion on these subjects to a very crisp source which offers you concepts and basics of these subjects without getting into too many details. So for these you have taxation law, ITR, property law and labor laws, which are otherwise very bulky subjects, but you should not go into too many details of these subjects, and probably keep a lookout for any recent case law that might have come and the areas that have been discussed in those cases. Now coming to recent case laws and how to read them. In the previous section we have discussed what areas to focus upon, how to deal with concepts, and what kind of classification should one do while preparing for so many subjects for CLAT PG. Now we are going to focus on discussion on how to read recent case laws. So apart from the fact that case laws have to be read very strategically, what we are going to understand in this section is that how and what should you additionally know while reading a case law. So the first thing would be that you should know to answer questions from the case law itself, in which you will have to understand what the case is about, the factual matrix. Then you'll have to focus on the legal provisions that are involved. Then you will have to see the findings or the conclusion. And lastly, you should also make a list of the important cited case laws in this particular recent case that you are studying. Next up that you have to focus upon is understanding the provisions. Now, understanding the provisions that are discussed in the case law is very important. But not only that, surrounding concepts have to also be understood. For example, if there's a case about reservation, you may also need to know in great detail about Article 15 and Article 16 in general, even if it is not being discussed in that recent case law. So have a holistic understanding of the concept that is being talked about in that particular case. Lastly, you should understand the development that surrounds that case and the provisions that are used in that particular case. So your focus should be on the landmark case laws that have come in relation to the recent case law, and then you should also focus on important amendments and any recent changes that have happened or are proposed to happen in that particular field. Lastly, there are two very important keys to success for any competitive exam. First is constant revision. Second is mock tests. So if you really want to retain whatever you have studied, you really need to revise, because revision is the key to success in any competitive exam. So whatever you read, make sure to periodically revise, have a schedule separately for revision and how much time you are going to dedicate to it periodically. The second key is practicing as many mock tests as you can on the latest pattern. So practice what you have learned, because that will not only help you understand the pattern and help you see whether you can attempt the paper in the set time or not, but it will also help you gauge your knowledge and understand where you stand and how or on what areas you need to work upon. Lastly, we have an important announcement that CLAT PG 2022 Open Mock Competition is being held by Jurisedge Academy on 6th February, that is Sunday, from 3 to 5 p.m. The registration is absolutely free. This is designed on the latest pattern for CLAT PG 2022. It will also entail a detailed analysis of the mock and all India ranking. So if you're interested in this, it's absolutely free. You can register for this particular competition from the link given in the description box. If you like this video, please like and share and subscribe to our YouTube channel.